Good afternoon. Today I am going to start from history, page number 62, towards civil disobedience. In February 1922, Mahatma Gandhi now decided to withdraw to stop the non-cooperation movement. He felt that the movement was turning a violence everywhere in many places and satyagrahis needed to properly train before they would be ready for the mass struggle. Within the Congress, some leaders were by now tired of mass struggle. Some of the Congress leaders, they were already tired for this mass struggles and wanted to participate in the election to the provincial council that had been set up by the government of Indian Act of 1919. So they were ready for the other thing. They felt that it was important to oppose the British policies within the council, argue for reform and also demonstrate that these councils were not truly democratic. C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, they formed the Swaraj Party. Underline this sentence. C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru, they formed the Swaraj Party. Now next party they formed within the Congress, in taking the Congress leaders to argue for a return to council politics. But younger leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, they pressed for more radical mass agitation and for full independence. Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, they wanted to bring the whole country into a full independence. In such a situation of the internal debate and decision, two factors again shaped Indian politics towards the late 1920s. The first was the effect of the worldwide economic depression. Agricultural prices began to fall from 1926 and collapse after 1930. So agricultural prices were also going down from 1926 and it collapsed after the no more in 1930. As the demand of agricultural goods fell and the exports declined, peasants found it difficult to sell their harvests and pay their revenue. Now farmers were in trouble when the production was going down. By 1930, the countryside was in turmoil. Everywhere there was a lot of violence. Against this background, the new territory government in Britain constituted a statutory commission under Sir John Simon. Now, statutory commission started by Sir John Simon, set up in response to the nationalist movement. The commission was to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest the changes. The problem was that commission did not have a single Indian member. In that commission, this statutory commission, no single leader was there, Indian leader was there, Indian member was there. They were all the Britishers in this statutory commission. When the Simon Commission arrived in India in 1928, when it came to India, Simon Commission, it was greeted. People, they said, go back Simon. All parties, including the Congress and the Muslim League, they participated in the demonstration. All they came out and they took part in the demonstration in an effort to win them over. The Viceroy Lord Irwin announced in October 1929 a vague offer of dominant status for India in an unspecified future and a round-table conference to discuss a future constitution. This did not satisfy the Congress leaders. The radicals within the Congress, led by Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, became more assertive. The liberals and the moderates, who were proposing a constitutional system within the framework of a British dominion, gradually they lost their influence. In December 1929, under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore Congress formalized and demand the Poon Swaraj. So in December 1929, under this presidency of the Jawaharlal Nehru, Lahore Congress, they demand that there must be a Poon Swaraj, that is a full independence for India. It was declared that 26 January 1930 would be celebrated as the Independence Day. So 26 January in 1930 it was celebrated as a Independence Day, when people were to take a pledge to struggle for complete independence. People took the pledge that there must be a complete independence. But the celebration attracted very little attention. All were not taking part in this. So Mahatma Gandhi had to find a way to relate these abstract idea of freedom to more concrete issues of the everyday life. Now, Salt March and Civil Disobedience Movement. Mahatma Gandhi found in salt a powerful symbol that could unite the nation. Now, Mahatma Gandhi had taken one of the symbols, salt, and he said that it can bring the unity in this country. On 31st January 1930, he sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin stating 11 demands. So, on 31st January 1930, he wrote a letter to Viceroy Irwin stating 11 demands. There were 11 demands in that letter. Some of these were general interest, others were specific demands of different classes, from industrialists to peasants. Many of the classes, the demands were there, 11 demands were there. It was written for every classes. The idea was to make the demands wide-ranging so that all classes within the Indian society could identify with them and everyone could be brought together in a united campaign. The most stirring of all was the demand to abolish the salt tax. That time there was he had took the symbol for this unity, but the salt tax was there. He wanted to abolish this salt tax. Salt was something consumed by the rich and the poor alike. This salt was taken under rich people. Salt was something consumed by the rich and the poor alike, and it was one of the most essential items of the food. So salt became a very important item in the food, and this salt, Mahatma Gandhi had taken that this symbol only, the word salt, can bring the unity in the nation. Mahatma Gandhi, the salt on salt and the government monopoly over in production. Now government monopoly was to produce more and more salt. Mahatma Gandhi declared, revealed the most oppressive face to the British rule. Mahatma Gandhi, he was ready to do this. Mahatma Gandhi's letter was in a way an ultimatum. This letter was in the way when he had sent this letter. If the demands were not fulfilled by 11th March, the letter stated the Congress would launch a civil disobedience. Now in these 11 demands, when the letter was not already, they have stated, then Congress thought that there must be a civil disobedience campaign. Irwin was unwilling to negotiate. So Mahatma Gandhi started his famous Salt March accompanied with 78 of his trusted volunteers. Now Mahatma Gandhi had started the Salt March. Salt March with the 78 volunteers. The march was over 240 miles from Gandhiji's ashram in Sabarmati. This march started from 240 miles away from this ashram in Sabarmati to the Gujarat coastal town of Dandi. Sabarmati it started and it has reached to the Dandi. Dandi, it's a place in Gujarat. The volunteers walked for 24 days, about 10 miles a day. These volunteers walked for 24 days and about 10 miles a day. Thousands came into here, Mahatma Gandhi, wherever he stopped, and he told them what he meant by the Swaraj and urged them to peacefully defy the Britishers. On 6th April, he reached Dandi. At last, he reached Dandi on 6th April and ceremonially violated the law manufacturing salt by boiling seawater. There he started to perform the salt. This marked the beginning of the civil disobedience. So at last, that was the day when the civil disobedience movement started. How was this movement different from non-cooperation movement? The question is asked now. The question is there that how it is different from civil disobedience to non-cooperation. People were now asked not only to refuse the cooperation with the British as they had done in 1921 to 22, but also to break a colonial laws. Thousands in different parts of the country, they broke the salt law and manufactured salt and demonstrated in front of the government salt factories. Now all together they came up and they started manufacturing the salt in front of the government. As the movement spread, foreign cloth was boycotted. This movement started. The foreign clothes was boycotted. Liquor shops were picketed. Peasants refused to pay revenue, the tax and the chowkidari tax. Village officials resigned. And in many places now forest people violated the forest laws also, going into reserve forest to collect wood and graze cattle. So everything it was stopped. Worried by the developments, the colonial government began arresting the Congress leaders one by one. Now the government started arresting some of the Congress leaders. This led to violent clashes in many places. Now there was a lot of conflict, there was a lot of violence in many parts of the country. When Abdul Ghaffar Khan, a devout disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, he was a disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, was arrested in April 1930. Angry crowds demonstrated in the streets. People came out and they demonstrated in the streets of Peshawar, facing armed car and police firing. Many were killed, not only arrested, many were killed. A month later, now Mahatma Gandhi himself was also arrested. After a month, Mahatma Gandhi, not only the leaders, Mahatma Gandhi also was arrested. Industrial workers in Sholapur attacked police posts, municipal buildings, law courts and railway stations, all structures that symbolize the British rule. Everything it was boycotted. Whatever it was belonging to the Britishers, it was stopped. Peaceful. A frightened government responded with a policy of brutal repression. Then peaceful satyagrahis were attacked. Satyagrahis were also attacked. Women and children were beaten and about 1 lakh people were arrested. So the British government had taken this path, and they not only tortured, they have arrested the children, they have arrested many of the people, those who took part in this movement. In such a situation, now Mahatma Gandhi once again decided to call off the movement. Once again, Mahatma Gandhi had decided now to stop this movement and to enter into a pact with Irwin on 5th March 1931. By this Irwin Pact, Gandhiji consented to participate into a round table conference. At last, with the help of Irwin, he started a round table conference, and this Congress had boycotted the first round table conference in October. In London, and government agreed to release the political prisoners in December 1931. In December 1931, Gandhiji went to London for the conference, but the negotiation broke down and he returned disappointed. No people had joined him and he already returned. Back in India, he discovered that the government had begun a new cycle of the repression. Ghaffar Khan and Jawaharlal Nehru were both in jail. Both were sent into the jail. The Congress had been now declared illegal. Congress was that time the Congress, they showed that it is illegal, and a series of measures had been imposed to prevent the meetings, demonstrations and boycotts. With great apprehension, Mahatma Gandhi now relaunched again the civil disobedience movement. For over a year the movement continued, but by 1934 it lost its momentum. Now next 3.2, how participants saw the movement. Let us now look at the different social groups that participated in the civil disobedience movement. Now many of the party people, many of the society people, social groups, they joined the civil disobedience movement. Why did they join the movement? What were their ideas? What did Swaraj mean to them? In the countryside, now rich peasants communities like the Patidas of Gujarat and Jats of Uttar Pradesh were active in the movement. Many people from the high class society, they came and they joined this movement. Being producer of the commercial crops, they were very hard hit by the trade depression and falling prices. That time the prices were going down. As their cash income disappeared, they found it impossible to pay the government's revenue. Now when the price was going down, they have not paid any taxes to the government. It was very difficult. And the refusal of the government to reduce the revenue. Now government had tried to reduce the tax demand, led to the widespread resentment. This rich people became enthusiastic supporters of the civil disobedience movement, organizing their committees and at times forcing reluctant members to participate in the boycott programs. For them, the fight for the Swaraj was struggle against the high revenue. Now, their fight was, these social groups, their fight was only for that they will not give the tax. But they were deeply disappointed when the movement was called off. Again, it was tried to stop in 1931 without the revenue rates being revised. So when the movement was restarted in 1932, many of them refused to participate in this movement. The poorer peasantry were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. Many of them were small tenants cultivating land they had rented from the landlords. Those days, in this movement, some of the changes came between the cultivating small tenants and the landlords. As the depression continued and cash incomes dwindled, the small tenants found it difficult to pay their rent to the landlords. They wanted to unpaid rent in the landlord to be remitted. They joined a variety of radical movements, often by socialists and the communists. Apprehensive of raising issues that might upset the rich peasants and the landlords, the Congress was unwilling to support no rent. Now Congress were not ready to give the rent campaigns in most of the places. Now for this the campaign started in many of the places. So the relationship between the poor peasants and the Congress remained uncertain. There was no very good link between the poor peasants and the Congress. What about the business classes? How did they relate to the civil disobedience movement during the First World War? Now Indian merchants and industrialists had made a huge profits and become a powerful. Now the Indian merchants also become very rich, industrialists also, because they have started taking more profits, lean or expanding their business. They now reacted against the colonial policies that restricted business activities. They wanted protection against the imports of the foreign goods. All these things took place, and a rupee sterling foreign exchange ratio that would discourage imports. The organized business interests, they formed the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress in 1920 and the Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. In 1927, led by prominent industrialists, you have to underline some of the industrialists like rich industrialists like Purushottam Das, Thakur Das and G.D. Birla. The industrialists attacked the colonial control over the Indian economy and supported the civil disobedience movement when it was first launched. So they attacked the colonial government and they supported most of the movement that was a civil disobedience movement. They gave financial assistance and refused to buy or sell imported goods. They were not ready to take. Most businessmen came to see Swaraj as a time when colonial restrictions on business would no longer exist and the industry would flourish within the constraints. But after the failure of the Round Table Conference, business groups were no longer uniformly enthusiastic. They were apprehensive of the spread of militant activities and worried about the prolonged disruption of the business as well as the growing influence of the socialism amongst the younger members of the Congress. Now the industrial working class did not participate in the civil disobedience movement. Industrial working class, they have not participated in this civil disobedience movement in a large number except in the Nagpur region. Only Nagpur region these industrial workers have took part in the civil disobedience. As the industrialists came closer to the Congress, now these industrialists were in contact with the Congress, workers stayed aloof. Workers were totally isolated. But in spite of that, some workers did participate in the civil disobedience movement, selectively adopting some of the ideas of the Gandhian program like boycott of the foreign goods as a part of their own movement against low wages and the poor working condition. There were strikes by railway workers. Now everywhere there was a strike. The railway workers took strike 1930 and dock workers in 1932. In 1930, thousands of workers in Chota Nagpur tin mines wore Gandhi cap. Now these workers who were working in the mines in the Chota Nagpur, they started wearing the Gandhian cap and participated in protest rallies and boycotting the campaign. They showed their how to boycott the things from the Britishers. Now, but the Congress was reluctant to include the workers' demand a part of its program for struggle. It felt that this would alienate industrialists and divide the anti-imperial forces. Another important feature of the civil disobedience movement was the large-scale participation of the women. Now, not only the men had took part in the civil disobedience, the women also took part in this civil disobedience. During Gandhiji's Salt March, thousands of women came out of their homes to listen to him. When the Salt March was there, this movement, the women came out their house and they wanted to listen all these things. They participate in the protest marches, manufacture salt. Now these women, they participated. They started manufacturing the salt, picketed foreign clothes. They stopped all the foreign clothes and liquor shops also. Many went to jail. In urban areas, these women were from high caste families. Now these women, they also participated from the high class caste families. In rural areas, they came from the rich peasants' household. Moved by Gandhiji's call, they began to see service to the nation as a sacred duty of women. Yet, this increased public role did not necessarily mean any radical change in the way of position of the women was visualized. Gandhiji was convinced that it was the duty of the women to look after the home and the hearth, be good mothers and good wives. Not only they were looking after their families, they were also joining this movement. Now and for a long time, the Congress was reluctant to allow women to hold any position. They were ready